Welcome to Seaview Circle, our recap podcast in which we review and recap our favorite television shows and movies from the past, present, and sometimes the future. And we do this all in service to determine whether our viewing taste is highbrow or lowbrow.
Yes, Doug. And along the way, we also kind of talk about vintage styles and fashions and sometimes filming locations, some of which are lost to the decades. Now, speaking of which, we had mentioned to my sister that we were going to be starting work on another show in addition to Knots Landing, I said, guess which show? And she said, oh, well, I know it's got to be, one of these old shows.
She probably thought it was going to be The Love Boat.
She did. She thought it was going to be The Love Boat because we love all the vintage, stuff and the vintage TV. And I said, no, we're going to be covering a modern show, Yellowjackets, but of course it does have a vintage element because the teen timeline takes place in 1996, 1997. And that's my era, really. I went to high school a couple years before the Yellowjackets. So I'm totally, well aware of all these pop culture moments and these needle drops from the show. And then, of course, Douglas has a connection as well to Yellowjackets because you're from Central Jersey.
Oh, yeah. So I'm born in New Brunswick, which, if you looked at last week's episode when they had mentioned the Aussies, It was in Piscataway, which I know is very close to the small town where I grew up until the age of 10.
How close is it to your experience?
I mean, it's not very close to any of my experience because I really grew up in Los Angeles. So most of my, teenage years and like beginnings of adult life and later adult life are here in Los Angeles. Really.
You're West Coast.
Yeah, I love West Coast. I'm a West Coast.
Well,
person.
It's funny that we mentioned this leading up to today's episode that we're going to be reviewing, which is called 12 Angry Girls and One Drunk Travis, because finally some characters again returned to New York City, which is where Doug and I actually met. So we'll get to that a little bit later on. Before we get to the episode itself, we do have some postcards from the edge.
Is this something I'm going to be reading and need glasses for?
Possibly.
Probably.
Yeah. Actually, today we're just going to be covering some recent YouTube comments. So, Doug, would you like to?
Okay, so YouTube comment. So our first comment comes from Shipman_6. This is from the season 1 recap of our favorite things. And actually, if you don't know who Shipman_6 is, she is also known as Autumn, and she runs the Yellowjackets Blood Hive fan group on Facebook.
On Facebook, yeah.
Yeah, so that's
thank you for your support.
Thank you for all your support. It's been really grateful. We're glad you're enjoying the podcast. She said, you missed something. When Lottie gave Van the bone necklace, Van continued to wear it up until they went to sleep.
This is from No Compass, season 1, when they go to look for help. Okay.
Yeah. So the next scene, Thaisa woke up in a tree with the bone necklace around her neck. That's why Van was mauled by the wolf. Thaisa had the necklace at that point. So the necklace was a protection, but Thaisa took the protection, and then Van no longer had it.
Which fits in with this guilt that Ty has as an adult, having Van, again, still have those scars on her face that she sees every day.
Every moment. I bet you the makeup people love putting those on Lauren Ambrose.
Lauren Ambrose has to get there a couple hours earlier.
Gotta get my scars put on again. So that's the first one. Is there another one?
Yeah, if you flip it upside down. Oh, no.
Oh, okay, upside down. Okay, here we go. So this comment comes from Rena. And now this is in regards to our Extra Jackets audit, which just hit last week, too.
Yeah.
And it's actually blowing up on TikTok.
Oh, my gosh.
The question is, do people from TikTok watch podcasts?
I don't know, but I would like to challenge some of you over there on the TikTok, the 40,000 plus that have liked or commented on one of our posts about the Extra Jackets, one of these team photos that we talk about in the larger, longer podcast. I would just like to challenge, a 10th of you to come over and check out the entire episode over on YouTube. I think you'll really enjoy it because we go through episode by episode. We go through all the team photos and decipher who these people are and who they may end up to be in the current season 3. So I really recommend it. We'd appreciate it if you do come over to the YouTube to watch the podcast, that you then subscribe and you like the content and you leave some comments there as well. We love the comments about this topic, though. So thank you so much. And thank you for your support over on on TikTok.
Now, the comment I actually didn't even mention yet.
Right.
This is great. I was literally talking about this with my boyfriend. And then we also got another comment from, I think it's ZCA-X4E says, yes, thank you for doing this so I don't have to. So there you go. We'll do this so you don't have to.
Right, exactly. It was a lot of work. Don't get me wrong. One thing I wanted to mention that we kind of left out of that, other than a vocal apology, a sincere vocal apology, if we did misidentify anybody. We did put that in the Chiron at one point. But I just want to make a point that, this was not an exact science. But I also wanted to mention, because I've actually had some experience doing background in TV and film, I know that sometimes if they need somebody to perform a stunt, they will hire a stunt performer. And so I was thinking in that one episode, number 3, The Dollhouse, that perhaps they hired stunt performers to safely take Coach Ben through the woods to the lake on that gurney.
Probably
because they can't trust a background actor to do that. That's not what they're trained for.
Right, and especially if they were on location somewhere, like it's not like there's a lot of control
over the
what's
terrain,
happen.
Right? And then the stunt performers are more expensive than background actors, so they're not going to have the stunt performers be background actors in the next episode if they're not doing any stunts.
And then the other thing I thought, like any other gig work, many of the people who are doing this work,
they're available Monday, they're not available Tuesday.
Right, they might have
Wednesday.
Hey, I work in a restaurant, I'm a bartender, I'm a this, that, and the other. So it's like, maybe when they did the callback, they were like, oh, we can't get
Melissa number 2.
Number 15 can't come back again. Actually, number 15 was there like all the time.
Agreed.
I really want to know who number 15 is.
I do too, and I have to say, really with this episode that we're about to get into, they really have solidified at this point that there are only 14 people out there. Number 15, or whoever this third mystery extra jacket was in season 2, that was in episode 8, it chooses the card draw. There were 3 people that were shrouded. 2 can be explained away as Britt and Robin, but there's still that third person who just has disappeared since the fire.
Well, maybe they're just magic.
So we want to thank you for those comments over on YouTube, and we want to invite you to subscribe to our channel if you have not. Also wanted to mention that we have a great little extra playlist on YouTube, which is the Yellowjackets Needle Drops. It's a really fun playlist of all the songs, maybe not all of them, but like our favorites. And we just had to add 2 this week to the playlist. So check that out if you're there over on our YouTube. If you want to message us, where can they do that?
Well, you can do this on our email, which is seeviewcircle, SEEVIEW circle @gmail.com, or alternatively, Instagram, it's at seeviewcircle, and I believe it's the same thing on
I don't know how you
TikToks.
actually do the TikToks and the Bluesky, but it's Seeviewcircle, SEEVIEW circle.
Seeview Circle. Just Google it and you'll find it.
You'll find it. All right, so let's get into the episode. The writers of this episode are Julia Bicknell and Terry Wesley. The director of this episode was Jennifer Morrison. Once again, this is called 12 Angry Girls and One Drunk Travis. I don't know if I should explain why I'm dressed like I'm from Game of Thrones today, but we'll get to it later. Who do you want to start with in this episode? I think
we should start with Shauna and Jeff.
Okay,
at the car repair.
Okay, yes.
Because I thought
not Adam's car repair, I hope.
No, not Adam's car repair.
Can you imagine?
I kept thinking maybe they were at that other car repair, which was Chop Shop.
Right.
But no, I don't think that...
She's running out of places to take her car in this town.
Yeah, she wouldn't be able to run over there with the car. They'd be running away from her.
This is very interesting because we find out right away that the car was not tampered with.
Right. They said it was the brake booster failed. And then I think Shauna immediately is still trying to justify that was tampered with.
Yeah, Misty did that.
Misty did that.
And the guy's like, no, nobody did it.
It just happens.
Misty didn't do it, and neither did this other mystery person do it.
Yeah. So we do see a little bit more into the Shauna persona of being convinced of something, and she doesn't see anything else going on. And this follows throughout the episode, even in team timeline, doesn't it?
So Jeff sees this now. If the car wasn't tampered with and the brakes just went out, he sees this as some sort of karmic payback for what he did to Kevin back in the last season. But this is the weird thing, is that he technically did not kill Kevin, and he says, oh, I let it happen, but he couldn't have done anything.
Except the only thing is loosely they are all kind of responsible, because if he hadn't have tried to come up with the scheme
right.
to get the money out of
blackmail
them,
scheme, this would have
and then all that stuff would have never have happened, and
Right.
Shauna wouldn't have thought
That's
that
true.
Adam was
yes,
blackmailing,
yes.
so like, he's got some responsibility.
Right. So what he wants to do is sort of rebalance his karma here, and so he suggests that the family does some volunteer work. But Callie is not interested.
She says something.
She's, why don't you just bring me back some karma to go, Dad?
Yeah. But I guess he finds the place. He said something about where Randy's working, which just so happens to be the senior living facility where Misty is working.
Again, this must be a really small town if they all keep bumping into each other episode after episode, right? Basically in the parking lot, Misty comes out and she sees Shauna and Jeff in the car. And so Misty is again excited. I was happy to see that the divide wasn't going to be so crazy right there in episode 3, right? When they had this little altercation in the car. So here we have them coming back together again. And Misty really is looking for an apology from Shauna. And I think Misty deserves it. I really do.
Oh, I agree. And doesn't she say, oh, I get it. You're here to apologize to me.
Yeah.
But then pretty quickly, Shauna shoots it down that she is not there to apologize. It's a little prickly, the whole thing.
Yeah, definitely. And it's cool because in this episode, they switch back and forth between the adult timeline and the teen timeline, focusing on Shauna and Misty. Now, they get inside the nursing facility and they find Randy, who his volunteer work is to call out the numbers in the bingo game.
Jeff kind of latches on to Randy to become his sidekick for the bingo.
He's flailing.
Yeah, and some of the older people are like, oh, yeah, let him give it a try because he's got stupid little jokes. So, of course, Jeff is loving it. He's getting this attention from all the old people. Yeah. Pretty quickly, he's like...
He's feeling his karmic changes already happening,
he's
right?
Feeling good.
With each joke, he's...
And as the episode goes on, you see it again when he's, having more interactions.
Yeah.
He's loving it.
It was nice to see him this episode.
I mean, it's got to be more exciting than selling furniture. For sure,
well, I'm sure
right?
you could use the same jokes in some ways.
Maybe.
So now Shauna, though, she is in the kitchen and she is, I don't know, stirring tapioca or something. I didn't quite understand that.
That was what I liked, was that line that Misty said that she was going to be on tapioca duty. It was going to be like so horrible. But of course, like it looks like Shauna's having a great time in the kitchen.
She's listening to Ace of Base.
Yeah, she's listening. I saw the sign.
Yeah.
Oh, maybe that's a little magic sign.
It is. I mean, all the songs, all the needle drops here have some sort of message. The sign, of course, was like a huge hit when it came out. Ace of Base, kind of a cheesy pop band or
Weren't
whatever.
they Swedish?
They were Swedish. They were like the second coming of ABBA.
Yeah, I remember.
The sign was like their huge hit. I was actually quite a fan. I think I might have the record somewhere in there. I was going to pull it out and show you. Oh, shoot. Should I do that?
No.
Okay. So anyway, Misty is trying to get Shauna to apologize for her behavior from the last episode, and she still won't do it. And then Misty has this like crazy psychotic break where she envisions killing Shauna with a knife.
Yeah, but at first you don't know whether this is real or not. And you think, oh boy, she's going for it. And she, in this dream sequence, she stabs her. I think she stabs her in the back, right? Doesn't she?
Yeah, for sure.
But then quickly we realized, no, it's just her little fantasy. So at that point she realized, I got to get out of here.
She says, she basically kind of course corrects herself. It's like, oh my gosh, this is not healthy for me. I need to get out of here. I need to reset this right now, which was good, I think, on Misty's part. She can see, actually, from what Shauna has said to her, what probably everybody has said to her entire life, is that she is completely insane. And so she needs to remove herself from this tempting situation.
Exactly.
And so she leaves. But what's interesting then is that Shauna has, I don't know why she's going into the freezer. She has to go in the freezer. And of course, the door closes and locks behind her.
This was
she thinks it's Misty.
Right. She thinks it's Misty. But what was very interesting to me about all of this, and I keep thinking about all these things going on, we tend to think like, is this the person that's following her that's doing this?
Right.
But in a way, I'm also now thinking that maybe it's just the wilderness energy is doing it. There's not a person necessarily. It's like an energy that's doing it. But anyway, she gets locked in the freezer, and of course, nobody's around.
Oh my gosh. Okay, first of all, this is so Brady Bunch, Greg and Bobby or whoever it is. Was it Bobby who gets stuck in there? I can't remember.
We've seen a lot of television shows where people get caught in the freezer. You know? But through the years, it's like there's always like a million.
It's such a cliche,
It is a cliche.
But I have to say, in this moment, I was sort of sensing, then, we see the Jackie ghost, right? The frozen Jackie ghost, which totally makes sense. As soon as Shauna gets locked in a freezer, you're going to see frozen Jackie.
She has the little icicles in her hair. Maybe, too bad we didn't have any of that. I could have put that in my hair.
But I started thinking, are we going to lose Shauna in this episode? I really thought it.
Well, I thought it already before that second that I saw Misty stab her. I was like, oh boy, this is not good.
Which is really interesting when you think about the context of the entire episode. I really did think we were going to lose Shauna in this moment. Like a super surprise, Let's talk about the Jackie interaction. I thought it was great to see Ella Purnell really, really having like a really good Jackie conversation with adult Shauna.
Yeah.
She says some interesting things.
Oh, I mean, it just reinforced again all of the guilt that Shauna has over the death of Jackie. And this Jackie ghost instigator, I do believe, is coming from Shauna's subconscious. Yeah. It's touching all of her fears.
Yes, she's reminding herself through Jackie of all the terrible things that she did there out in the wilderness. And all the terrible things that she did when she came back from the wilderness. That was very
interesting to me when she said, what you did when you got back. And then I was thinking like, what did you do when you got back?
We are going to
I
find
guess
out.
We're going to get maybe another timeline, you think?
I think we're going to see, that timeline from when they get back, right? When they get rescued. And I think that there's going to be a character who survives and then is going to want to talk. And then she has to kill her. I think.
Yeah, maybe.
The other thing is, too, if you imagine that Shauna and Melissa are like this power couple now, which in this episode, they definitely cemented that moment. If Shauna and Melissa come back and they're rescued and Shauna then immediately distances herself from that and goes right back to Jeff.
Oh, well, that would be
Can you imagine?
Bad. Yes, I could imagine. But I could imagine also that if that is the case, then something would have happened sooner.
Yeah.
Unless, maybe she gets rid of her for a while. Who knows? I don't know.
Oh, gosh.
But anyway, that was a super interesting scene. Seeing again the Jackie pushing all the Shauna buttons.
Yeah, I love how she even kind of pushes the button of like, is this what you survived the wilderness and did all those terrible things to be this person? That was rough.
Yeah. Now, of course, we see Shauna still trying to like bang on the door.
Yeah.
She picks up a piece of meat. Do you remember it was big? Yeah. Piece of meat. She's trying to break the doorknob.
Big meat.
It's a reference. Trying to break the door down, and then, well, luckily, Randy's in there to get a snack in the kitchen.
Well, Randy didn't have anything. He wasn't entertaining enough for the older people, so they're just having him on snack duty. Yeah.
Yeah. Now there is one little Randy thing, and I wanted to know if you caught the reference to it. So it was like after the bingo, he was sitting there at the table with Jeff, and somebody mentioned something about the cards.
I did.
Did you catch that? But I don't know if anything happened with the cards. But then I was like, because obviously the cards show up later in this episode again, too.
I think in that moment, I thought the same thing, too. I was like, oh, my God, what do you mean the cards? But I think they were going to play like poker, and Jeff wanted to see if they all had their purses because he was going to play poker for real money. You know what I
was going to say, because I thought, like, okay, what happens if they start playing with the cards with the old people? And then the old lady picks out the queen. Bye.
All right. So actually, let's go into that storyline. Let's go into the Ty and Van, that adventure with the cards, because it's very, very interesting. We do have a scene, and we'll talk about Lottie. You better believe we will be talking about Lottie.
I think we should save that. We'll save that last.
Yeah, but I do want to mention that Ty calls Lottie. It was weird because I don't know how Ty knows that Lottie is out from the loony bin, if you will. I don't know how she knows that, but she calls her, and Lottie takes the call, and she's very happy to take the call. But then Ty is immediately asking questions about what Lottie had said at the end of season 2 when she told Ty and Van that they'll see the wilderness is happy, right? And Lottie don't remember that.
Right. She says, yeah, I don't remember. But it was weird because she was just coming out of the bank.
Yeah.
And she was wearing a very expensive kind of looking fur coat.
Yes.
She has a beautiful necklace on.
Yes.
And it was like a wealth management place. And they thanked her. They said, oh, thank you for whatever.
They gave her a receipt. She put it in her pocket.
So I feel like she was depositing some dough somewhere.
Well, remember, her parents were always the wealthy ones.
Yeah.
Her father was the one who donated the plane, if you will.
I guess we don't even know whether her parents are still alive or not. We don't know any of that story.
We don't know a lot of these parents. It's really interesting. All right, so Ty asks Lottie this question. Lottie doesn't give her any information. And then Lottie's just like, well, thanks for checking in on me, because Ty's not interested.
Yeah.
So then we have another scene a little bit later on, and Ty and Van are outside, and they're on the street corner, and they're talking about this wilderness wanting a sacrifice, and they're thinking, oh gosh, we need to feed this beast. And this is the crazy thing. Ty just goes up to the little newsstand. She buys just any old random pack of cards.
Yep.
She flips through it. She takes out the queen card. She pops it on the ground.
Yeah, she said, let's just try and see.
It's like a trap.
Yeah, so let's see. And it was that was a comical scene, but, dark comedy, obviously.
It was dark.
Where there was that little kid picked it up at one point, and then the mother took it and put it back down on the ground. And then a kind of like a middle-aged guy who has laundry with him, like dry cleaning, he picks it up and puts it in his pocket. So then they start following him. And it's like total like stalker. And
so I didn't quite understand at this point what they were doing in following him. I thought they were just kind of wanting to like watch him from afar to see if maybe he got hit by a bus or maybe he got, whatever.
Yeah, at first I thought the same thing. And then it became apparent when they're inside the building. I was thinking like, holy shit, they're going to kill him.
It was crazy.
It was really wild.
It was crazy.
And I thought it was weird because I just felt like, why would Van go along with this?
Well, she's not really going along with it, you can tell. There's a moment when the guy picks up the card. In Ty's eyes, she gets excited. So this is definitely the other Ty that, has been referenced. She is back. She's just better at hiding it. Mm-hmm. Maybe because she's happier now that Van's there. She has more of a purpose. She's got a goal here. Like, we got to keep Van around. So we've got to start murdering strangers who got the queen card. It's crazy.
Wild. But I think then, doesn't it? It's like literally the door is open. Because she was going to try to crack open the door, but like she just turned the knob, so she opens the door like 2 inches.
She sees that as a sign.
Yeah,
it's a sign that we have to do this.
We have to do this, but
the door's open.
But what is the conversation she had with Van? Because pretty quickly,
Van says, "We do not have to do this." She pleads with her, like, "What are you doing? This is crazy." And then it's like there's this change in Ty, although I didn't see it as a change at that moment, but I do think it was the change from other Ty to regular Ty, where she's just like, let's just do something different.
Yeah, what am I doing? And so then she says, she makes a plan. She said, meet me here at
the corner of the park at Columbus Circle.
The corner of the park. And that's so funny because, of course, like many people who've lived in New York, we totally know that area. Like,
we used to work only a block from that destination where Columbus Circle meets up with Central Park. So this was great. And what a fantastic callback this was. You didn't even really notice it at first.
Yeah, and then I remembered when she said, she's like, don't you remember when we were in the wilderness and you had said you wanted to take me on the carriage and buy me a hot pretzel? And I thought that was...
Meanwhile, Linger from the Cranberries is playing.
Yeah, Linger is playing. I'm not going to tell you my version of that song.
No, you are not.
But the funny thing was that I really was wishing at that moment that I had bought those frozen pretzels that you get at the supermarket, because I was like, this is a perfect time.
That would have been a good snack.
Yeah, we could have had a hot pretzel and maybe some pub cheese with that.
So that was from the episode. I can't remember exactly the number off the top of my head, but it's where Tice is cutting her hair and Van's helping her, and she says, yeah, have you ever been to, or I really want to, that's what they want to do when they get back. They want to go to New York, they want to go see a play or something, and they want to go for the carriage ride and have a hot.
And I'm going to say this, I found it very refreshing finally to have some scenes in New York too, because, here's the thing. These scenes that they've been filming that are supposed to be New York don't really ever feel like, to me, too much like New York, especially like.
But they feel like say Newark, New Jersey. That's where I do say we've been to Newark, and I would say architecturally it does look similar to that downtown area of Vancouver.
Right, but knowing that it's filmed in Vancouver, like even when you look at some of the things,
I did a little research.
Oh, good, you did some research to tell us where it is. But that's my thing is I was just very happy to see like actual New York location,
or at least a reference to it. You know what I mean?
Finally.
So when they are across from the little newsstand and they buy the cards, there is a marquee above them. You can barely see it, but it says Paramount. So that's easy enough to look up. I looked up, where's the Paramount Theater in Vancouver? The address is 652 Columbia Street, and the actual town is New Westminster, British Columbia. It's basically in between Burnaby. I don't know if you remember that. We drove through on the way back to the United States.
Oh, yeah.
We drove through this way because we went to the 2400 Motel from season 1, which was right in that area. And you drive through on your way to Surrey. Remember, Surrey's like on your way out.
Okay.
And so basically New Westminster is right there. And that's where they filmed the scene with the card and the guy picking up the card outside of the Paramount Theater that is in the Vancouver area.
Well, there you go.
Little citizen detective work there for you.
Good job, Misty. Good job.
So now what else happens though in this scene? There is a little, it's not all fun and games here in this scene. Because
it was very weird because then you see when Van moves like to grab the
pay for the pretzel or
pay
something.
For the pretzel. She gives her cash.
Yeah.
Remember, she doesn't have the cash
right.
for the carriage. That's what it is. And her hand is shaking. Like it looked to me like Parkinson's or something. So it was weird because wasn't that the whole deal is that from the cancer she's in remission, but then I thought, is something else going on with her?
Okay. This is kind of getting into some territory that we might want to save till later, but I do think there is an element here that we are dealing with people who are outliving their expiration date. All of these survivors from this plane crash that are here in adult timeline are outliving their expiration date. That's why the wilderness is so hungry. It's keeping to need some sort of sacrifice to keep these people going.
Right.
Okay. So if now the cancer's in remission, maybe she's got something else.
Right. Okay.
This is what Ty's going to think. Ty's going to think, oh my gosh, we need to keep
killing,
sacrificing.
Right.
To keep Van in my life.
Yeah. But yeah.
And I think that's going to happen in the other characters too.
Well, if you remember when Natalie died in the last, the end of the season, last season, she makes a reference about how she should have died, right? Wasn't it like
yes.
in the original plane crash?
Right.
So maybe that's the whole thing is maybe they should have all died and for whatever reason it didn't happen. And that's why they've got this cross to bear. It's almost like they're almost like zombies, but not really.
That's a good way of putting it. Now let's just go right into the other zombie in this particular episode. This is Lottie. Adult Lottie's final episode. She dies, and this is a huge shock. This was a huge shock. Again,
I was literally.
We're going into this episode thinking
punched.
Coach Ben is going to die in this episode. We just thought that.
I think everybody thought that Coach Ben was going to die in this episode.
They're leading it all up, and then halfway through, they have Shauna locked in a freezer. I'm thinking, oh my god, is Shauna going to die? Nope. It's Lottie.
Yeah, it's just really weird because, remember, they showed that scene of...
This is why I'm wearing the fur, by the way.
Misty...
This is in tribute to Lottie all throughout season 2. She's wearing that fur. Well, actually, season 1, too. She wears that fur jacket she has. And then here we have in this final episode, she's wearing that fur jacket coming out of the bank. She deposited money, obviously. The bank's very happy. She puts it into her jacket.
Yeah.
Then we have the next scene. This is very interesting.
Yeah, well, so I guess...
How did you perceive it at the time?
This is how I perceived it at the time. So it's Lottie talking in the mirror and apologizing. Rehearsing an apology.
It's almost like a performance, an acting performance.
Right. So I took it as she's rehearsing her apology to Shauna. That's how I took it.
That's how I took it at first.
But then we have the death. So part of me is thinking, does she have the other personality going on too? I don't know.
I saw it in the moment of, because they did a really nice edit there where she is apologizing to herself in the mirror. And then they cut to the young Lottie in the wilderness. So to me, I took it as she's apologizing to herself for doing this to herself, allowing this to happen to herself, allowing everything we already talked about before. Remember, we were talking about how whether or not it's if the Yellowjackets all made her that way, right? What Van said, or if it was partially this.
Yeah.
What we can say at this point is that she did have visions. She had visions because at the end, when she is found dead, there she is in that weird tunnel thing or whatever with the
stairs with all the candles.
The candles are on the side. She envisioned this way back when she was a child in Saints, when she was having that baptism moment with Laura Lee. That's what she envisioned. And here it is coming to fruition. And this is where she dies. She goes up the stairs. She lights the candles. At that moment, she saw the explosion but behind Laura Lee's head.
Yeah.
And here it is. This is the time when she dies. This throws so much of our theories away, because even in the last episode, we talked about how Misty was in the leather jacket in the season 3 trailer and she goes to investigate. Was she in these underground bunker mining tunnels out in the wilderness? No, she is in the New Jersey area, okay, investigating what happened to Lottie. Now, it is said at the end there's crime scene, whatever.
Right.
So they're saying right now it is a crime, which then leads you to believe that maybe there is somebody out there, another survivor, who is targeting.
Well, what about this? This is something that struck me, which we could talk about as a later Shauna Jeff moment, which I found very weird.
Okay.
So
you're scaring me.
No, Shauna said, she has the cat. She said she went to the city to New York. She was gone. She went to New York, and then she came back. She had the cat. So to me, what I was looking at is I'm thinking like, Shauna has murdered Lottie.
I think you might be right. I think you might be right.
That's what I'm saying. Like, to me, it was so weird when she talked about the cat. I was like, what? Where's this coming from?
I think you're right.
But the thing is, she said she went to New York, and it didn't hit me when we watched it. Like,
they don't put anything in this show for no reason. They don't have Jeff going on a karmic mission to correct his rights and wrongs and wanting to go find a missing 2-year-old cat for no reason.
And she did that for her karma.
Well, I don't know if she did it for her karma.
She said something.
She did it to protect her damn daughter.
Maybe.
From that crazy woman.
Yeah. So that was the thing that it kind of got me.
Obviously, Shauna is on a mission in this episode.
It got me in the middle of the night. That's why I wasn't sleeping well, because I woke up and I was like,
it makes sense, because in the trailer there is a shot where Shauna literally says, the only way to survive is to be the last person standing.
Yeah. Okay, so there you go. That's what I think.
Oh my God, I think you're so right. And now Misty is going to be on the scent. She's going to be on the trail.
Right. It's just
I have
really
to say, I keep going
jarring
because this thing's falling off my back. But anyway,
you can take it off.
I can take it off. In tribute to Lottie, until we finish talking
about Lottie.
Now that we have lost Travis, Natalie, Lottie, that is 3 of our core 7 from the Extra Jackets breakdown, okay? And there might be another adult survivor in Hillary Swank, potentially. We're down to only 4 remaining survivors right now that we know of. Misty, Shauna, Ty, and Van. It's getting down there. And I do think this. As much as everybody is freaking out about potentially losing Coach Ben or potentially losing Akila, I don't want to lose them either. But we have to remember most of them are going to die. All those people out in the wilderness are going to be eaten.
And let me tell you something. By the time they get to the 5th season of this, boy, those actors who are left are going to have a lot more screen time.
Yes, they are. Oh, we are going to get to it as we start talking about this trial, because there are now so many correlations to another show. Let's get into it. Let's get into the trial. We find out right away from the intro, before we even get to the theme song, that they are going to have a trial of Coach Ben. We knew this from the title, because it is a reference to the film 12 Angry Men, which I believe was a play beforehand. And the movie is all about a jury deliberation. So it's after the trial's already happened. It's the jury deliberation of how they're going to vote. And obviously in the U.S. judicial system, you need a unanimous vote in order to convict someone for something like, say, a murder. And so what's happened here in the wilderness is,
well, they have a different set of standards.
They have a little different
Theirs is a 2/3 majority.
Right. And that was a compromise between Shauna and Natalie to have the 2/3, right? So what's really interesting in this moment is that, and by the way, Coach Ben is just like, I can't believe they're doing this. But he's so outnumbered. Poor Coach Ben. I just feel so bad for him. But I do think it's interesting that Natalie approaches Misty and says, Misty, you're going to have to be his defense lawyer in order to give him a fair shake. And Misty actually has a little pre-meeting with her client, right, in the pen with the ducks or whatever. And she says, Ben, you can't say that this doesn't make sense or this is pointless or, whatever. You have to believe in this system or they're all going to turn on you. So she's really in this moment with him. And she also says to him, listen, I saved your life out there on the cliff when you were going to jump. Don't you remember that? Like, don't do this to me. Let's get through this together.
Yeah, I thought that was sweet
great.
how they were kind of, because at first she was like, oh God,
yeah.
It's like, I'm not into this. Like he's, left us. And
right.
She was obviously disappointed that
she
he
was
left.
disappointed. We know that Misty had this attraction to Coach Ben, and they have a much bigger relationship, really, if you put it into context of other things that are revealed in this episode and also stuff that we know from season 2. Then, of course, Natalie and Ben also have this relationship as well. There's a huge question I want to get to at the end of it that I don't understand. It was a missed opportunity, in my opinion, for Coach Ben. I wonder if you can pick up on it. But before we get into the trial, let's just put a little button on the Aquila situation, because that was like a little side thing that came up. As they're walking in from the cave, and it's daytime, even though it was the nighttime before. Did they all sleep in the cave?
Yeah, that was a little weird.
So Aquila is approached by Lottie, or maybe Aquila approaches Lottie this time and says, hey, I had this dream, and this is what happened. So now we can confirm, by the way.
Now we know that they all had dreams.
Were individual. They say this, and in fact, I think the line is, stay out of my dreams.
Stay out of my dreams, baby.
So now that Lottie's invitation seems somewhat validated by her own dream, Aquila sort of acquiesces and says, okay, maybe we should do some work with this, getting in tune with the nature spirits. So that'll happen, I guess, in the next episode. But what was interesting, again, is they did have this moment with the screaming trees, and it did feel like they were sort of coming for Aquila. Now, isn't there that theory out there that the screaming trees are actually just...
It's that these guys are so out of it now at this point. They're so crazy that it's search airplanes going overhead.
Helicopters and search airplanes.
And that's what they were hearing.
They're just ignoring them because they're having their little fantasy world
I don't
out there.
know. Maybe. Who knows? I don't know. It's a good one. I like it.
It is a good one. And they even hear him in the cave, right? Coach Ben and Mari here in the cave.
I think, though, at this point in the Yellowjackets excursion, I think they wouldn't be searching for them still.
Yeah.
I think they would just be doing their thing.
Well, yeah. It
could just be a route that people go over. Obviously, their plane went that route. So maybe they're just, but anyway, that's a...
Well, their plane went off course is what they said.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well,
getting back to the trial, getting back to the camp, we have Travis just sitting there on a hammock, and I'm thinking, why was this dude not there in the cave, like you said, like helping to protect Natalie or whatever? It's just really weird. I feel like the Travis character is very underused in this season. We'll get to it in a way why I think maybe it is. But one thing to note is that there are Javi's drawings, if you notice, are still kind of pinned up. They're a little charred from the cabin fire, but they're there. And that kind of plays into, I guess, Travis, because later on at the end of the courtroom drama, he has provided the the court renderings on some tree bark. We'll get to it. All right, so into the trial, we have the prosecution lawyer, who is Ty. Oh, right. My gosh.
Oh, she was so great.
She was a lawyer when she was an adult.
Right. And then, you know what? She even, while we were watching it, I loved when she said at one point, she said, I want to redirect.
Yeah.
Which was like in the teen
and then
timeline.
Natalie's like, I don't even know what that means.
Right. I don't know what that is.
I thought it was really cute because obviously this was an homage to the 12 Angry Men movie. It's right down to the plot, everybody. It's just a little bit of a switch.
It's a
outcome.
Twist. It's a twist.
But it's the same concept. And actually, having been on a jury, I know what this is kind of like. I love it when they're starting and there's kind of like this big crescendo buildup of the music, right? And it's like all this ceremony and they're wearing all these like special outfits.
Oh my God. Did
right?
you see the dress that Natalie was wearing?
Well, she's wearing, it's for the gown from the pagan ritual still.
I know, but I was sitting there going like, where did you get that? And she had the little antler.
Yeah.
She had her antler queen.
So they do this big
stuff.
crescendo buildup and then the music stops and she hits the gavel. And it's like this really sad, pathetic sound.
Yeah.
which shows the innocence of these kids.
But the fact that they even had a gavel.
Well, they made it.
They made it. Yeah, they must have spent a lot of time working on the gavel and the dress.
This is the big question I have about this episode in general. Why are you spending all this time on this trial and doing all this stuff? Why aren't they still trying to get out of the forest? Screw all these pagan rituals and all this other weird stuff. Why aren't they trying to get out of there? Clearly, they're just enjoying their life.
Yeah, they're having a good
They're
time.
just having a great old time. That's what's so interesting about all this. Weird. Anyway, getting into the trial, this is great, right? You have this great back and forth between Misty and between Ty, the two different lawyers, prosecution lawyer, defense lawyer. And Misty does a really good job. She's got a couple of really great arguments, and you can see that there's people that are definitely for Coach Ben, and there's definitely people that are definitely on Shauna's side, and this continues to build throughout the episode. She does the whole don't make an ass out of you and me, right? Don't assume that makes an ass out of you and me. That's so 90s. I love that she says to the whole jury, she says, listen, you don't think that if Shauna found Mari Ibarra, by the way, found her last name, Mari Ibarra. You don't think that if Shauna found Mari at the bottom of a pit, she would just leave her there?
Well,
so
that's
how
what I
is
thought
Shauna
too.
any better than Coach Ben?
Right. And if you were a person who was trying to do harm to Mari, then you would have left her there. You wouldn't have helped her. You wouldn't have, all those things about fixing her leg, getting her out of there.
Right. So they're showing that Coach Ben really is a good guy. And why would a good guy who's done all this stuff in the current moment have done that bad thing in the past by letting them all die in a cabin fire, right? Now, it's really great because this gives the opportunity for everybody to bring up all these past moments. They do bring up the fact that Coach Ben was of no help
during
to Shauna
the pregnancy.
during the pregnancy.
Obviously, Shauna still is holding a major grudge against Coach Ben. I think because of this reason. I think that's the number one.
It better be, because I can't think of any other reason why she is so adamant about this.
Yeah.
But she is fiercely protective of her children, which is why that concept you just came up with of Shauna killing Lottie could very well be tied into
that.
Well, and
I was thinking, and maybe that's why she still always has a little bit
We're done talking about Lottie, so taking this off.
She has a bit of a problem always with Misty, too. It's because, Misty did come through in the end, but at that crucial point at the beginning, she couldn't handle it.
Right.
So maybe there's...
Well, she blamed Misty too, remember? Yeah,
she did blame her, but I'm saying
beat her up because she thinks that if Misty maybe had caught it earlier on, that maybe the baby would have been saved.
So that's kind of what I think Shauna's underlying situation is always even in the current timeline.
It's interesting when they then turn on Shauna as a witness and they say, well, maybe it was you, right? Because weren't you up, writing your journal?
Journaling
and
or whatever.
Weren't you upset that you weren't chosen as the new leader after Lottie sort of gave up her position? And that I was really happy that they brought that up. So they're bringing in all these tie-ins from the past season, which I thought was really smart. There was another moment, we didn't even mention it, in the nursing facility really quick, when adult Misty's walking down the hall, and it's a total callback to the very first episode, the very first time you see Christina Ricci as adult Misty walking through that hall, where it's like super menacing and you're like, who is this? Yeah. So as Misty's going through all this stuff, she really is starting to prove to the jury that it could have been any one of them, right? If it's Coach Ben because of X, Y, and Z, then why isn't it Lottie because of C, D, and F, or Shauna because of J, K, and L? You know what I mean? So she started to kind of turn the tides, which is really interesting. But she never asked the question, this specific question, what if it were Van? This person was not mentioned as a possible suspect, and I believe that she should be.
Especially based on that dream.
Yes.
Last one,
right.
With the spark.
We say that Van is scared of fire because she escaped the fire in the plane. She escaped the fire when she was attacked by the wolf. She escaped the fire in the cabin. But what if she is the one who set the fire because she feels like she needs to die from fire? She's giving her opportunities to die from fire.
It's a possibility.
Right?
Definitely a possibility.
I just thought it was interesting they left that one out of all the possible
suspects.
Except
the only other thing that I keep going back to, as well as the same thing, let's just say the freezer being locked by the wilderness.
Yeah.
Well, maybe the wilderness just did that to them in the cabinet
just
because it knew that they needed to go to the next level.
Right.
Otherwise it was not so. Cabin daddy, whoever.
Who was one of the suspects that Misty mentions? She goes, it could have been Crystal.
Oh, right. That was so funny because she said it could have been Crystal, and then you saw everybody kind of gave this weird look. Did you notice that?
Nobody said anything.
No, they gave like a little weird look, and then at that point I was like thinking, I'm positive they all think that she is crazy. Like she's got this imaginary friend named Crystal.
I really do feel that way at this point because that would give everybody the perfect opportunity to say, where is Crystal?
Right.
But they don't.
But there was a look.
So we have the tides turning in favor of Coach Ben, and we still haven't even heard his testimony yet. But what we do hear from Shauna is that Misty had told her that Natalie knew all along where Coach Ben was. And this was a part where you're just like, oh my gosh.
Right.
And it gives Sophie Thatcher a really nice moment to be on the witness stand right now, even though she is the judge. And she has obviously this relationship with Coach Ben. She did a very good job, I think, of explaining that dynamic of what happened towards the end of season 2 at the Javi. I don't think it really puts too much blame on her. I don't think.
Yeah, but I mean,
these people are all crazy at this
yeah,
point.
they're all crazy. It definitely brought some suspicion onto Coach Ben, I think. And maybe this is now going to be the dethroning of Natalie. I mean, obviously,
sure we're getting there.
I think it hasn't officially been said, but it's pretty apparent at the end of the episode. Like,
Misty
we know who's in
realizes
charge.
that things are not going so well at this point, so she has no other choice but to call Coach Ben to the witness stand to defend himself. And this really was quite a fantastic scene.
For me, it was really great to see the Coach Ben character talk about these things. And, you know, there were some of the things here that he talked about.
It all made sense to me.
Well, he had a very, he was saying
except for
how,
one thing.
Well, I think what they were worried about at first was that they had talked about with him, did you not really care about us?
Right.
I think that was the thing. And it was really sweet because it came out the fact that he was finally part of something that was good and successful because he came from a really screwed up family.
He mentioned how he was able to correct in the people that he was kind of taking care of or overseeing. He was able to correct the things that his parents were not able to help him with.
Yeah.
Which was a nice tie-in. And then he also mentioned all these wonderful, fun little moments that they had, or all these times that he covered for them.
Right. He covered for them. So that was showing that, yes, he did care about them.
Yeah.
And
I love the part where he said about Misty, where he said, I didn't let you join the team because I knew that you weren't going to be good enough and they'd all laugh at you, which I think was really sweet. He basically has everybody in tears at the end.
And that's why I'm still so shocked that, you know, Bully Shauna could actually turn the tides on the voting.
So they do the vote. And Misty is pretty confident that he will be freed at this point. And this is where the movie comes in, 12 Angry Men. Because in 12 Angry Men, and again, in any jury in America, for now, you need to have a unanimous vote. And so you will deliberate back and forth for however long it takes to get to that vote. Unless you become, you know, a hung jury where you cannot, you know, make that unanimous decision, right? But for them, it's 2/3. So they're trying to get to this 2/3, and they don't quite have the 2/3 in favor of Coach Ben. So then they have to revote. And this is that moment where it's like a montage where they're voting over and over and over.
They must be voting like 10 or 15 times.
And this is where they're drinking the berry wine.
Right, so they're getting a
They
little
show
loaded.
that. And so just like the movie 12 Angry Men, the vote completely changes. They are able to sway the majority, you know, sway the minority to become the majority or whatever. And this is where it becomes very much like Survivor. It is exactly like the Survivor Tribal Council. When you get further along into the show of Survivor and the numbers start dwindling and you're in the minority, well, you better vote with the majority, because if you don't, then you're going to be the next one to go. So that's why this kind of hysteria created by Shauna and Melissa starts changing, because they see Shauna as the new leader. She's the dominant one over Natalie. And so they have to jump ship, even if they don't necessarily feel that way. And maybe the berry wine helps them to ease their doubts or whatever, their actual feelings of what they have, what they've just seen with Coach Ben, to then side with Shauna.
But I do think where we're heading, and we kind of talked about this in the past, is that we're going to see this now move into warring tribes.
Yeah.
It's going to be like two separate groups. Now, whether Coach Ben makes it or not, I don't know. Maybe he will make it.
Yeah.
You know, maybe he'll be in.
We can talk about
Natalie.
the next episode at the very end real quick, or maybe we should just talk about it right now. The title of the episode is called Did Ty Do That?
Did Ty do that?
Which is a reference to Family Matters, which was a show from the late 80s into the 90s, and that Steve Urkel said,
"Oh, I don't know that one.
So
I don't think I saw that."
Did Ty do that? A terrible rendition. Please.
Did Ty do that?
So in the promo shot, she has this big rifle, and you see Misty and you see Natalie, and they are very distraught in the background.
Oh,
so
boy.
that would lead you to believe that Ty has shot Coach Ben.
Oh,
Did Ty
boy.
do that? Spoiler alert, guys.
Oh, I'm getting
Spoiler
hungry.
Okay. So anyway, if that's what's happening here, I will say this is a really missed opportunity for Coach Ben. I think, why did Coach Ben not say at that moment that he was gay? Because to me, aside from Shauna, who he's never going to win over because of the baby thing, to me, the other two people that he needs to win over are Ty and Van. They're the ones that are on Team Shauna here, and they're not changing their mind. And he knows they're gay. So why not say that in that moment?
Oh, I would have used it.
Yes, because on Survivor, we know this. When you get down to the final vote of who's going to win the $1 million, you need to convince each individual person. You need to have your own relationship with each individual juror to get them to vote for you. On Survivor, and here in this situation as well, you want your jurors to vote for you in your favor. And so if he had thought about that, oh, maybe I can convince both Ty and Van, who are also gay, that I've had to struggle with this, and this has been part of my journey and part of the reason why I am where I am, it is, you know?
Yeah, but I'm going to tell you this. Survivor probably didn't start until like 1999. So that's
2000,
unfortunate.
2000.
So unfortunately, if they had that frame of reference, like
true.
if it started earlier in the 90s, maybe they would have been fans of the show, and they would have been like, oh, I got to do this like Survivor. Yeah. Hey, I got to make fire or whatever.
What's really, really interesting is that this week, right before the episode aired, I think on Wednesday, there was a promo that came out for the new season of Survivor, which also just started. You know, it's like season 115 or something at this point. But anyway, Jeff Probst talks about, you know, what it takes to be the ultimate survivor. And then it's also a promo for Yellowjackets season 3, which is also on
very
Paramount.
clever.
Very clever. And it shows the comparisons between these two shows, right? In Survivor, the ultimate goal is $1 million. On this show, apparently, it is to be the final survivor. That's what I think we're seeing here ultimately. Yeah. And so that's why I'm saying Coach Ben really, if he had thought about it, he could have gotten maybe at least 2 more votes. But then again, they were all drinking the berry wine. Guys, stay off the berry wine.
Stay on the soda water.
Now, let's talk about this, the berry wine. Let's talk about Travis again, because why isn't Travis more of an ally to the only other dude that's out there, right? He is out there doing whatever he's doing. He's on a hammock. He's drawing on a piece of bark or something. And maybe he's drinking a lot of berry wine.
I think he's drinking a lot of berry wine, which probably sets him up for his later issues that he shared with Natalie.
Yeah.
They're just boozers.
I know.
So he's become like
that's how he deals with it.
Total alky.
Yeah.
So...
Okay, so the vote comes in now, and it is now 2/3 against Ben. So Natalie basically tells him that, she doesn't really say officially that you will be put to death, but basically that's kind of what is all feeling to be the case here. And even look on his face is like, yeah, okay, which I thought was weird.
I guess at this point he'd probably be like, all right, well, yeah.
I mean, he's seen the writing on the wall for a long time, but still, and he doesn't have all of his strength with him.
Maybe it's better to be put to death than to starve to death.
To be part of all this, right?
To be part of all that crazy stuff.
I guess. Then you have Melissa turn to Shauna.
Yes.
And she says her most powerful line she's said so far in all these episodes. You see what that is? That's the power that you now have. That you were able to change everybody's mind out here pretty much. Now, Melissa did change Jen's mind, if you noticed, right? Because Jen wasn't going to vote.
She wasn't going to vote. And then she puts her arm up like meekish, kind of like, it's like, no.
So then Shauna clasps Melissa's hand. And there's this kind of moment there that, is kind of showing a little bit of their relationship, but not, in a way, not really, because to me, it almost feels like Shauna is taking Melissa's support. But that's kind of all she's using her for in that moment. That's how I feel. Now, it has been said that the adult Shauna, or Melanie Lynskey, has said that, yes, absolutely, the Shauna character is bisexual. And she said this way back in like season 1. So it's not that she doesn't have some feelings for maybe Melissa, but I definitely feel in this moment that is like a solidifying of, say, her little tribe. Let's get these people solidified.
Girl power, baby.
Lottie sees it, and she's like, oh, boy.
Yeah.
Then Lottie walks over to Travis, and she's like, what's that? And he shows this drawing.
I was still trying to figure that out.
It
was like wasn't it like 3 or 4 people below?
It was one body kind of like flailing, and then 3 bodies here. And Travis says, it's the outcome.
Yeah, that's why I didn't quite understand that. I was trying to figure out, like, it's the outcome. Who is the one body? Maybe we need to see that again.
Yeah.
A couple of little things that I wanted to mention within the episode that I noticed that were just minute but kind of interesting.
Minutia is great on Yellowjackets.
So when Lottie's talking in the mirror and she's talking about apologizing, when she finishes speaking, you hear that little bell noise that you would have heard when she was in her vision with all the candles. It's like 2 seconds of the music, and I thought, okay. So it was like a foreshadowing.
Is that kind of, it's like
no, it's just like ding ding. I don't know.
Okay.
So maybe when we watch it again, we can take note of that. The other thing was Shauna's with the Jackie ghost, and Jackie says, "Someone's trying to hurt you."
Right.
And I was thinking,
and she's like, "Why aren't you doing something about it?"
Yeah.
You're just kind of blaming people. Go do something about it.
Yeah, do something about it.
And she goes and does something about it.
Yeah.
She goes and kills Lottie. That's who she assumes is trying to hurt her.
Maybe.
Or her family.
Maybe. Yeah, maybe. Maybe not, though. One other thing. One thing they mention, but they don't really talk about, which I think is weird, is they talked about Mari falling in the pit. But nobody's really talking about the pit.
Thank you.
Why aren't they talking about the pit?
Why aren't they talking about the pit?
I would be like, so where did the pit come from? What are you talking about?
Right.
Let me see the pit.
Right.
Like, I would be really interested to know what.
Yes.
And I'd like to know more about the cave.
Well, here's the thing about the cave. I think at this point we can assume the cave does not go off into some huge crazy tunnel system. I don't think we can see that connection between the underground tunnels or the bunker and the cave. I think the cave just ends somewhere. Maybe there's a little bit more there. We don't know. But I don't think it's what we thought it was. Wait, isn't that what Lottie says? It doesn't mean what you think it means.
Doesn't mean what you think it means. Who knows?
Another thing I want to mention. Oh my gosh, we can't get out of this episode.
Another thing.
We've talked about how they're living in this world that's all warm and fuzzy and beautiful golden hour color. There's a theory out there that maybe they're all suffering from some sort of mercury poisoning. Remember there was the river in season 1 that had the kind of reddish tint to it.
Okay.
So they're saying that could definitely affect your brain. Certainly if there was like mining or something nearby, there might be a potential for there to be mercury. So that's something to think about.
Sounds like a Reddit theory to me.
Yeah, someone else had mentioned maybe even like mad cow disease. Like if you're eating human flesh that's been out in the wilderness, who knows how unchecked that is. Maybe they all have a little bit of some sort of infection in there somewhere.
I thought it was delicious last time
I thought it was delicious when we had Jackie Jerky, and I'm not suffering from any delusion.
And I want more Jackie Jerky.
Okay, well, I think at this point it's time to come in for a landing on this episode and get right down to the Lotus Point. Before I say that, though, isn't it funny we keep saying landing, which is a reference to Knots Landing, but it could also be a reference to the
We're coming in a landing
crash.
on the airplane.
It's the plane crash of our episode. We're getting right down to the Lotus Point, find out just how highbrow or lowbrow this particular episode of Yellowjackets was. What did you rate this 4th episode on the brow meter,
Okay,
Doug?
so, I'm just doing this on the fly.
Me too.
I haven't even thought about it. But I will say, I do think it was better than some of the other ones we've seen. There was a lot of depth there. I'm going to say 4 out of 5.
I'm doing 4 as well.
Oh,
we are
okay,
in
cool.
agreement. Usually on a podcast you want to disagree because that makes more argument. But
yeah.
I am with you. I felt like the Lottie aspect, especially now looking back on it and knowing what we know, it just crushes me because we were so enjoying Simone Kessel on this season. The few episodes we've seen her in, she is so absolutely delicious.
Yeah, but what makes you think you're not going to see more of her? She could come back as a ghost.
Yes, she better. She better.
You better finish up and do some more, Simone. We love seeing you.
All right. So now, before we get to the closeout of this episode, we would like to remind you that earlier we talked about YouTube, but you can also subscribe to us over on our Spotify if that is where you are watching our show or listening to our show. You can rate us there as well. A 5 would be great.
You can like the episodes on YouTube, or you can comment, and engagement is very important.
As we've noticed over on that TikTok.
Yeah,
wow.
TikTok is going off.
We love it.
And please share our content with your friends if you know anybody who's interested in this television show. We're on Bluesky and TikTok, and obviously, you know where to find us on YouTube and Spotify. So we're good.
Yes.
So next on Seaview Circle,
we will find out exactly what Ty did.
Did Ty do that?
Stay hungry, friends, and we will see you then back on the sack.